why don't you tell me what appears to be the problem? Let's have another episode of Consult the Doctor, because it's been a little while that I did one. So I have for you 4 questions. Two, I would say 3 really related to pens, and then the 4th one is kind of about my SBREBROWN pen. So let's get started. Can you explain the visual differences between ebonite and plastic feeds? And I thought that was actually a really good question, because people like me sing the praises of ebonite feeds, and that's because ebonite has very good flow characteristics. So often I find ebonite feeds flow better than plastic feeds, but there are exceptions. B.R.E number 8 nibs, I very often have issues with their ebonite feeds. So also don't think that ebonite is a silver bullet, especially though if you are dealing with flex nibs. Ebonite has such a nice flow characteristic that the ink flow stays better in ebonite feeds rather than plastic feeds. Now, having said that, how can you tell the difference? Well, that's a fair question. And I'm just going to show you a couple options. So here, I hope the camera is going to focus this up close. Here we have, this is a Yardled pen. This is a plastic feed. It's just, I actually don't know who makes these nibs. I'm assuming B.R.E. It looks, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm right in saying that. So that's not the discussion here. The discussion is look at the feed. Notice how shiny it is. It's pretty flat. It's also shiny. The flatness, that's irrelevant because different feeds have different shapes. Now I'm going to show you an ebonite feed. This is definitely B.R.E. This is a B.R.E number 8 nib. So that's the 380 nib unit that they have. This is on a Lambrou Pens LB6. Look at this. This is an ebonite feed. Look at how matte that is. Yeah, that is an ebonite feed, also quite flat. And then I have another example for you. That is a nib on the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra. This too is an ebonite feed. Sorry, just making it focus. As you can see, this one seems to be a little shinier, but it is still ebonite. Now what I'm trying to get at is, it's actually really difficult. Visually, it's very difficult to tell the difference. There is a good test. Take out your feed, light a match, hold it under the feed. If it melts, it's plastic. If it catches fire, it's ebonite. That's a surefire test. But assuming that that's not very attractive to you, it's difficult. What you can do is knuckle it, smell it. Ebonite has a particular smell, but I don't know how to describe that smell, so if you've never smelled that, that doesn't really help either. I think the best thing you can do is post some pictures online if you don't have if you don't have friends who have handled a lot of different pens. You can ask them, post pictures online, fountain pen network, and good chance that if you give people a model, they will say, oh, that's ebonite. I know this is not a very satisfying answer, but I find it very difficult to answer because those feeds can look alike a lot. What I will say, maybe that's one giveaway that I can kind of think of beyond the more matte finish, is that typically the fins, some people call those combs in a feed, the little grooves that you can see. Sorry, I opened up the wrong pen. You can see them clearly on this Yardled again. You see those little sort of grooves? I find that those tend to be finer on plastic feeds and a little thicker on ebonite feeds. But that too is a kind of a relative thing. So I'm sorry, I know that was a very long answer and I still didn't really give a full answer to that question, but I think that's the best I can do. Okay, next one. Pens sold on Katawiki. Can you count on them being genuine? I would answer that question. I know I keep saying pen, I'm sorry. Must be on my mind. I would answer that question in a more generic fashion. Pens bought online on auction type sites or websites that are not actual shops, I'd always be wary of. So if you buy a pen online from any of the big players, This is not a commercial, but whatever. Goulet pens, Anderson pens, Gold Spot, Pen Chalet, Appelboom. I was trying to think of another one. Pen World in Belgium. There is Lay Wines in Toronto. These are actual shops, not necessarily brick and mortar, but these are big established shops. When these people sell you a pen, you can rest assured it is a genuine product. But once you get to auction sites like eBay, or sometimes even on classified sites on fountain pen forums, people prey on innocent buyers and they sell off imitation, fake pens, and that's the end of it. So sometimes there are dead giveaways. For example, if you find a Montblanc 149 on eBay listed for $20, it's fake. You cannot purchase a genuine Montblanc 149 for $20. It's not possible. That pen is much more expensive. Even if it's a third-hand pen, so to speak, it's going to be more expensive. So look at the price and be reasonable. Beyond that, I don't think there are any guarantees. What looks like a Lamy Safari can be fake. What looks like a Montblanc can be fake. Some brands I don't think get really imitated. I've never seen a fake Visconti Homo sapiens, for example, but give it time. I'd be very wary about that. Okay, the next question. The reason I'm looking down is I'm writing down timestamps. How do you determine to sell a pen and what to ask for it? In one of my previous consultant doctors, I talked about selling pens, so you can find an index on my website with a quick description of the topics. You can find that one. I think how I decide to sell a pen, I kind of addressed in that video. That is a matter of if I do not use a pen regularly, if I ink up something once or twice a year, then for me it's typically a moment to say, well, there's no point in me owning this. It's too much. I just don't use it enough to warrant owning this pen. The second question I think is more interesting, and that is what to ask for your pen. And I seem to recall that Peter Tweidel, in his outstanding book Fountain Pens, has a fairly simple way of doing that. He says if a pen is in mint condition, 100% of the price. If it's missing some things, like it has no box and it has some minor cosmetic issues, a little micro scratch here and there, 75% of the price. If it has heavy scratches, 50% of the price. And if it is in worse condition than that, maybe not functioning, 25% of the price. It's certainly not a hard and fast rule, but I do think that is a nice guideline that you can use. Now, I tend to look at pens from the perspective of what did I pay for them, but also how rare are they. If you happen to have a pen that is a limited edition, but you don't happen to have the box, it's still a limited edition. It may still be sought after. Think of a Montblanc Hemingway. Those were about $450 when they were launched, and I see them selling online now for $2,500 or $2,600. So I mean, clearly they've gone up in price, and even if you don't have the box, I'm sure you can still ask $1,000 or $1,500 for that pen, because people will pay it, because that's a desirable pen. So you also look at that. Boxes or not, papers or not, I would say that. I also think it's a matter of obviously you look at the condition of the pen. If parts are missing or if it's not functioning, well then you can't ask much. I don't believe I've ever sold a pen that did not write, because they may as well just throw it out. But be clear about those kinds of things as you sell it. I think that's almost more important than how you set the price. Be clear to people, there is actually a little micro scratch here, or there is a thing there, or there's something, just be aware of it. That's kind of what I would say. And then this is not meant as a bit of an unpleasant remark, but I mean, pens are also worth what people are willing to pay for it. The let's say classic pens LB5, when those were launched, I believe they were $1,650 US with a regular nib, and they were $1,850 US, I want to say, with a cross point nib. I see those pens, even with regular nibs, now going for $6,000 or $6,500 US. Is it worth that? Not to me, but to people who collect them and who have been influenced by certain people who convince them that these are very nice pens. To them it might be worth it. So what I'm trying to get at is, I don't think there is a point in ripping off people. And when I sell pens, I certainly try to not do that. I mean, but having said that, some pens are worth whatever someone is willing to pay for. But then you get to the actual value and what people are willing to pay for it. Anyway, I think I'll leave it at that, but that's more or less my process. I look at the pen, I look at how special it is, I look at the condition it's in, and then I try to set a price based on what I at some point paid for it. I hope that helps. Okay, final question. This is a very specific one. Not everyone may find that equally interesting, but someone asked, I'm very interested in the process of start to finish designing things. What about your pen, the SBREBROWN pen? This is for said pen. This was the prototype. Could you talk us through the process of how that, like the whole start to finish and then signing off on it? Yeah, and I think it's a fairly simple process, to be honest. It wasn't extremely difficult. So trying not to bore anyone to death, it started with me thinking it would be nice to have my own pen. Then I started to talk, I think, to Joost Appelboom about that. He said, yeah, that would be nice. And I said, yeah, but I'm not going to do the distribution. If only I knew someone who has a whole professional distribution system set up. And then he said, I could distribute it. I said, yes. So I said, well, how about Leonardo? I like Leonardo pens. He does Salvatore of Leonardo. He does special editions for different people. He has done it in the past. I'm sure he would do it for us. Do you want to do that? Yo said, yeah, those pens sell well. Let's do it. I said, how about some regular pens and then a lower number of grandes? Yo said, yeah, that sounds like a selling idea to me. I said, okay, then how about material? I said, what do you think of Jonathan Brooks? He makes very nice acrylics. Yo says, yes, he does. I think Yo had worked with him in the past on Dutch pen show Leonardo's, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if the timeline's correct. Anyway, I know Jonathan. I've met him, like actually face to face in DC. So I reached out to him, told him about the idea. He said, yeah, let me make some like cast some different acrylics, see what you like. He did that. He sent me pictures. There was one kind I really liked. That's what ended up. So that ended up being this. So this is a very, very dark brown with gold swirls. I like that. I wanted something brown because it has BRE-brown, just like with my ink. So I was in favor pretty quickly. Back to Salvatore, asked him how many rods of acrylic he would need. So we did the math. Of course, all this needs to be paid, right? So you cannot just, I know that people would like to get this pen, and I know it was sold out fairly quickly, but no, it is not possible to make 10,000 because someone has to foot the bill up front, so that's not that easy. We got the material made. Material was shipped to Italy, so this is, right, I'm communicating in Canada with someone in the Netherlands doing the distribution, with Jonathan in the US, with Salvatore in Italy. Jonathan makes the material, send it to Salvatore. Salvatore starts to make pens and he makes prototypes. He sent them to Joost, initially sort of a little crude, so there were no rings installed, for example. And he said, how about this? Joost had some feedback on that. He sent me videos and pictures of the pens. I said, yeah, I like this. What about that? Could we like sort of improve on that a little bit? For example, Joost initially didn't really like the engraving that was done, so he asked Salvatore if that could be improved a bit, like made a bit more high resolution. And so he did, and I think it looks pretty nice now. The nibs are engraved with the Fox logo as well, so he did all that. And I think it really worked. I think it worked. So as soon as I saw that as the more or less finished products, Joost sent me 2 of these pens. These are the artist proofs, one in grande, which I have here, and then I also have the regular size. He asked me, that was the final approval process, what I thought. Well, I liked them. I thought they were really good. And And so I signed off on them and I said, yeah, that's fine. So a number were made. I say a number because I don't remember from the top of my head. I think it ended up with being something like 100 or 110 or whatever. I'm blurry on this now. Had that made. Some of the grandes, that was a really much smaller number, and that was it. So the whole process actually was very smooth. It just took a long time because Salvatore gets orders in all the time. He has his own business. So these things take a while, and that certainly requires patience. And when you're very excited and happy to see your pens materialize, obviously that it takes effort to stay patient. But that was it. It was a smooth process. Joost did all the distribution, which I love. This sounds a bit snarky, and it's not meant as such, but Canadian Post, like Canada Post, is very expensive. So if I send something to the US, a pen box that can easily be $30, I can't do that. I can't absorb that kind of cost. So that doesn't work. So Joost, having a professional distribution network set up for his store, for him it was easier to do that. Business expenses, these kinds of things, that really helped. And I would certainly do that again. I know that, why am I now blanking? David Figwood, I know that he did all his own distribution, and much props to him for that. USPS is considerably easier to work with than Canada Post. It's not a dig at Canada Post, it's a big country and there aren't that many people here, so this is how it works. So that's how that worked. That was the process. And I'm happy with it. I like the way they turned out. I like the material, I like the finish, I like the logo, so I'm very happy. This was it. I hope this was useful. Have any further questions, leave them below, and I shall get to them at some point or another. In the future, consult the doctor. Thank you for watching. I hope this was useful, and I'm glad to see you later.